Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show here on the WZWA Network. I am your host, as per usual, the host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia Infirri, and I'm very excited to be with you all here tonight. My co-host, Jack Wallace, is having some internet issues, so he can't join us, but that's okay. It's fine, because I am here with Asian royalty. He is, without a doubt, one of my favorite heels from the Attitude Era. He is somebody that I did not think that I would have the chance to speak to, but thanks to a friend of mine called Joe E. Legend, I was able to make contact with him. And it's my honor and my privilege right now to introduce the one and the only Tiger Ali Singh. Tiger, how are you going?
Very nice. Thank you so very much, brother, for welcoming me onto your wonderful program. You come highly referenced by our mutual friend, Joe. And he goes back, way back to our Sully's gym wrestling training with Ron Hutchison and Sweet Daddy Siki.
Right. Yes, I've heard a lot about Ron Hutchison.
Yes.
And usually, Tiger, when we start the show, we usually ask how you became a wrestling fan. But this is a little bit different for you because you were born into a family where your father was already a famous professional wrestler. So I guess you were hereby forced to become a wrestling fan as a young boy. But what are your memories when you first started watching wrestling as a young man?
Well, interestingly enough, and I shared this with when I went to see Vince McMahon and our dearly departed Pat Patterson. I never grew up watching WWF. I never grew up watching over here Maple Leaf Wrestling in Toronto. I was drawn just to the Japanese wrestling because my dad was wrestling there. So at those days, it used to come on beta tapes. So I used to do the beta, and then I copied it over to VHS, and I did all my mixing and all of that, Tiger Jeet Singh greatest hits. And I was really drawn to the allure of the respect and the athleticism and the strong style of Japan. I wasn't really drawn to the theatrics. It was just a no-nonsense, tough man sort of sport. And I was a big fan, obviously, of my dad's. And I can ring off Japanese wrestling stars, just like, I guess, kids born over here can ring off the American stars, like, Antonio Inoki, Sakaguchi, Strong Kobayashi, Muta. It goes on and on and on. So I was a big fan of New Japan Pro Wrestling, obviously, and my father. So that's I had never had any aspirations to become a wrestler, but I was really a big fan of my dad.
Right. So when was it about, as you're growing up, when you're starting to think to yourself, maybe I can do this too, maybe this is my calling as well? What made you decide to start training?
Well, I had always been doing training. That was, myself and my two younger brothers. We were always into athletics. There wasn't a sport that, any one of us didn't try. So you always had to be in peak physical condition. And so I'd always train. My dad would teach us the sit-ups and the push-ups, I guess, since I can remember walking. And that's just part of our lifestyle. That's part of the lifestyle of my children now. And so I had always had aspirations in soccer, which would be European football or basketball. And once again, no interest whatsoever to become a wrestler. And I think it was my very first trip to Japan. I think I was 18 or 19 years old. And I witnessed my father. I think it was the first match that I witnessed of my father in Japan. I think it was Antonio Inoki's Memorial Series. I'm dating myself, I think in 91 or 92 or something like that. And it was in Yokohama Stadium. I remember that. And it was a dream match. So what they do is they put it out to the spectators. And the spectators' unanimous choice was to see the greatest, this is in their opinion, the greatest rivalry in the Japanese wrestling history, which was Antonio Inoki versus Tiger Jeet Singh. And they wanted to see them as a tag team. So I got the best of both worlds. I got to see my Japanese hero and my father, my hero, see as a tag team. So they went up against Animal Hamaguchi and the Big Van Vader, God rest his soul, dealer departed Vader. And it was an unbelievable sight. I remember, even I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of it now. I was sitting there front row with all the other legends. They had Johnny Valentine there. They had Johnny Powers, Andre the Giant. I was a big fan of Stan Hansen. He was there, Billy Robinson. So they had brought all of these stars to be guests ringside to witness this dream match. And I was just a skinny, I think it was like 150 pounds, 160 pound, 18-year-old kid. And I witnessed this match. So at my dad's entrance, they played the national anthem of India. And everyone stood up and they had the Indian flag. And you had, I don't know how many tens of thousands of Japanese people chanting, sing, 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 sing. Whenever he would, get a hot tag, or whenever they were waiting for Inoki to tag him in or tag him out. And it blew my mind, man. It blew my mind. I was just like, that's not my dad, like he was like two different worlds. When he was home, there was none of this. Like, he didn't drink his own Kool-Aid. That was at the office. And when he came home, he was dad, like, we would rough it up. We do wrestling. He would come like any other parent, watch us play soccer on the sidelines. Well, not like any other parent. The parents would be in the lawn chairs and drinking their Java. My dad would be on the other side, and he would be running up and down while we're running and doing Hindu squats or push-ups. So I remember him, being so, so full of life. And, but that blew my mind. I was like, right then and there, I said, he's always been my hero, and a lot of people grow up admiring, and you guys would have superstars in New Zealand and Australia, like rugby. Over here, the big thing was ice hockey, which was Wayne Gretzky, and basketball at the time was Michael Jordan. But always to me, it was my father, Tiger Jeet Singh. So just imagine, it was like, at 18 years old, I go, it would be a tragedy if this man's legacy was not continued on for future generations to learn of. Like, he was a pioneer for the South Asian community in Canada, right? Like, he was not only South Asian, he was the first visible minority to be on mainstream television in the late 60s. He was the first South Asian, especially Punjabi, wearing a turban. You know how it was. He wrestled in New Zealand and Auckland and all that. So there was lots of racism, lots of anger, because he looked different, right? So he was the first, and he was the pride, even to this day, the pride of the South Asian community. So, all that history, I just thought it needed to be preserved. And so I put all my aspirations aside. I said, this is the most important thing. And I wanted to carry under his name. Like, I wanted his name to be remembered. It didn't matter about me. I just wanted, Tiger, there was a Tiger, and so that's how I got into it.
Right. So you start training, and one thing that I really was interested in asking you about was teaming with your father in 1992, I believe in FMW. That must have been just such a wonderful experience to spend all that time with your dad and work with him. And man, I just want to hear about that. That must have been so much fun.
Well, that's great. You hit it right there. It was lots of fun. Prior to that, I didn't really have a really close relation with my dad because, he was this menacing figure. And whenever he would come back, we would mind our P's and Q's because we were scared. My connection to this day has always been with my mother. She is like my best friend on the planet. Like, there is no secrets that I hold from her, like everything. I think she knows me more than my wife, to be honest with you, from the childhood perspective, But you're right. The bonding with my dad as a father and son, as a peer, started when I started training for wrestling. And it was never pushed on me. He never, ever had any inclination of me being a wrestler. Neither did my mother. But when we started traveling We became really like, we're inseparable now. We're best friends. We have breakfast every morning with each other before, the day goes nuts. I see him at night. I always say goodnight. I see him. We have a very large estate that we live in. So we're, a joint family. So my parents, they live with my mom, my wife, and my 3 children. It's large enough that we have all our own wings and all of that. But I'll make sure before I put my head on my pillow that I'll go and pay my respects to my parents, because they've sacrificed their whole life to give us what we have today. And so on the tour, we just gelled, man, just good times, good jokes. I think that's when he started treating me more like as an adult. He never had any vices, It was not like he was all of a sudden, oh shit, my kid's with me, he's going to cramp my style. He's never done smoking, he's never had affairs. There was never girls or anything like that. He was an unbelievable true gentleman, right? Because you can imagine if you live that kind of life and your kid is coming, and you can only hide it for so long, because then all of a sudden society, right? Like I would find out from his friends and all of that, but that was something else I really admired, for being someone that was at that stature. He never gave into the vices. And so I was really proud of that. And then leading up to that match that you're talking about in FMW, I still remembered it was in Corrigan Hall. I believe we were fighting Sabu, and I believe, the great Sabu. And I believe there was another guy, like a copycat sort of butcher or something like that. A really nice guy too. I know we booked him on several tours after that. Just unbelievable. But I was a greenhorn, man. I was so excited. And, Corrigan Hall is like Madison Square Garden in New York. That is the shrine. That is like all the epic matches happen in Corrigan Hall in Tokyo. So I was, I was so green, and I was like, just like a popcorn in a popcorn machine. The kernels were pop, 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 pop all over. I was going all over. I was so green. I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm a fan of my dad, and my dad is there too. So I was like, it was really, really exciting. It was a cherished moment, and lots of fun with my dad.
Excellent. I believe that was on the 20th of November, 1992, and you faced Sabu and a guy by the name of Kareem Sudan.
That's right. It was something Sudan. Yeah. And I think he's from Chicago or something like that, not from Sudan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was a big fan of Sabu. Unbelievable, a legend, Sabu, all the stuff he was doing. And
absolutely, yeah.
So I was in awe. I was just a kid, man. I was just a kid, and just enjoying the moment.
Right. So I did a bit of research, obviously, before this interview, and I'd learned a few things about how it went from where you were working in Japan with your father, spending most of your early career over there. But there is a time period where you end up signed by the WWF. From what I gather, you were signed for a specific reason to help with a TV deal or something like that. Is that, am I getting that correct?
Yeah. So the real reason was to renew their TV contract with Star TV, Rupert Murdoch. So back in the day, there wasn't as many channels. So Sky Sports was their carrier in Europe. Star Sports was their carrier in Asia. And one of their largest, if not the largest viewership was obviously India. You had 1.3 billion people. So they weren't really looking to me to be coming in like a blue chipper or anything like that. It was more like, the ethnic part of it, right? Because that was kind of that was kind of their marching orders, that we need somebody to represent, like how wrestling is. Everyone's got you have a wrestler to represent a demographic.
Yeah.
So at that time, they didn't have a wrestler to represent that demographic. So that was kind of the ultimatum that the TV people told them. And at that time, there weren't that many carriers. So if they never renew the contract with them, unlike today where you can, go ping pong back and forth,
of course, yeah.
They would have been marginalized more as a regional, like they would not have renewed their contract with them. And at that time, WCW I'm not sure about WCW as much. I know that they were, just hammering. They were trying to hammer. There was a war, right? They were trying to defeat Vince McMahon. And also Antonio Inoki, New Japan. He was the one that actually brought it to our attention. He flew in here with his entourage and he goes, listen, this has been told to me that we can pick up this deal and let's start a new company in India. Like, he talked to my dad about, let's, Inoki and Tiger Jeet Singh, let's build it and then let's groom and bring Junior along, right, to try to carry it into the future. So there was all those plans. He flew here and we never used that as a negotiating tool whatsoever. My dad is very honorable, very respectful, and that's the way we were raised by my mother. And but you're right, that's how it happened, and it was a really big whirlwind. So first Inoki came, just called my dad, flew in from Japan with his entourage, told us everything. And I recently was married, so that was in November. So my honeymoon, I was planning for December. And while I was away, I believe it was, then they had a president, Carl DeMarco. He had called, everyone knows my dad's number. You can get it from anybody back in those days, before emails and text and all that messages. So he contacted, and I got a call from my dad at that time. I don't even know if there were cell phones, but I remember, calling him back and he goes, the guy says he's the president of WWF and that he would like to meet us. He would like, to try to see if we would be interested to come with the WWF. So you know how it is. The WWF just doesn't make cold calls to anybody. There's always a reason behind it. There's a motive, right? Like who was I? I was a greenhorn. I just started in Japan, where no disrespect to Japan, it's more strong style. It's not, sports entertainment that the WWE is, right? Like they're the epitome. They're the top. They're the echelon, right? Like according to Bret Hart, I remember when I signed, he goes, "Welcome to the big leagues," right? They knew everything. They were athletes, they were actors, and just the whole package. It was phenomenal. So, so I remember, like, I was so young. I go, there must be an angle. Like, what's going on here? So we didn't pay it that much mind. I think I came back and he goes, can you put some wrestling highlights together? Some of your matches and wrestling highlights. And, I'm like, we don't have a library. So you make shift, you get it from Japan. We did a few shows in India and Manila. You put some highlights together, entrance, exit, a few high spots of drop kicks. And they go, they just want to see like the presence, not like to, analyze how you work. That if that's the case, they bring you in, they try you out, they put you in a couple of matches, maybe some dark matches, but they knew we were totally open, said, listen, I'm just green, just started a couple of years ago and it's in Japan. So they know the situation in Japan, it's not WWE. They go, no, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Because they were on a time clock, right? They needed to sign this deal. So we went and met with Carl DeMarco. We gave him the video. And then soon after, I left in Florida. So that's when the calls started coming. And my dad goes, Vince McMahon wants to meet. He loves everything and he wants to negotiate a contract. Well, that doesn't happen either, right? You don't just negotiate a contract. And I said, Dad, and because I was so naive and I never had aspirations for WWE, I was just tickled pink to be with my dad now, wrestling in South Africa or wrestling in, in India or Japan. So, and I was so naive, right, to the world of business. I didn't know anything. So it wasn't like we were trying to play hardball. I go, Dad, I'm in the honeymoon now. Like, can't we wait till after? Then I remember a call came again. He called again. He goes, he has office in Florida. He can fly down and meet us in Florida and he'll fly me from Toronto. Like they were really urging, like there was an urgency to sign. And I said, Dad, I'm not going to meet anyone, right? Like I was 23, 24. Just imagine this, right? Yeah. It was not negotiating. I just go, Dad, I'm not going to negotiate. I'm on my honeymoon. So they go, okay, when are you coming back? The next day we want to fly you out. So that's what happened. So I arrived, I believe it was, before Christmas, a few days before Christmas, I landed. Next day, Carl DeMarco met us at the airport, and they flew us out to New York, and then picked us up and took us to Stanford. So then we're at their headquarters. Never met Vince, and now they're taking us on this tour. You know, they want to. It's like going to Walt Disney, right? They want to really, really, you know, show what they are and how big they are. So I remember they took me in New York. They had their stylists. They had the art designers. This is the robe. This is what we like to do with you. You know, like it's like a comic book hero sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they said at the time, I think one of the artists, they only do this for people they have big plans for, right? But I'm 23. I'm a greenhorn. Like, what do you have for me? Like, I haven't proven myself. I haven't done anything. But everything was expedited. Then they flew us to Stanford, took us to TV studios. You know, the big wow. There was a nice guy at the time who was their writer, and they had made an entrance for me. Little did I know it was a copy of Sultan and Iron Sheik. But they said, "This is for you, Tiger." And finally, we went back. They fed us lunch and everything, and then we were back in the office, and that's when Vince McMahon came. And very, you know, he is just an unbelievable aura and a presence. I remember that. And Bruce Pritchard was there, and Carl DeMarco. So they took us in his private office, and we just started talking. He goes, "I love everything that I've seen and all that." But there was nothing really seen. It was a highlight video. So he goes, "I want to sign you. I want to sign you for life." And but he goes, "Legally, I can't. So I want to do a 10-year contract with you." I don't want to get into the numbers and all that, but it was substantial, like a 10-year guaranteed contract. You work, you don't work, you're getting paid.
Okay.
So I said, so he goes, "What do you think? What will it take?" So, you know, remember, I'm a greenhorn, and my trust and loyalty is with my dad. So my dad was sitting next to him. And I said, "Mr. McMahon, thank you so very much for this. I'm very humbled. But ultimately, the person that's going to decide if I come or don't come is my father." So I turned it over to my father, and I said, "My only one request would be, if you're asking a request, I would like you to sign my father with a very respectable executive role with the company, because he more than deserves it. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him." So he was kind of taken back by that. And he goes, "I respect that." So then he started talking with my dad. And my dad was, you know, he's just a straight shooter. And that's the reason why he's been in Japan for so long. He's the longest standing wrestler in the history to go to Japan, over 40 years, right? And he was voted the most popular and the most respected by magazines and by wrestling companies. So he doesn't play games. He's not a two-faced guy. And so he goes, "Vince, this is how we do it. I'm not into negotiating. You write down on a piece of paper what you think my son is worth, and I'll either say yes or no. That's it."
Yeah.
And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he goes, "But I would like you to bring your proposal to Toronto. We'll have a dinner at the house, and we'll go from there." So he goes, "Absolutely." So in a couple of days, I think it was Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, they flew to Toronto. Carl DeMarco picked them up, and it was winter. I know it was snow, and they came to our house in Milton. So I think my brother greeted them at the door, and he gave them 2 contracts in sealed yellow envelopes. So my brother then gave it to, I think it was our cousin or something, and they went and took it to the office and put it in the office. And he goes, "Isn't your father going to see it?" He goes, "My father doesn't do business on social, right? Like, we're going to eat here, we'll sit down." So he said, "Okay." So we exchanged pleasantries. We sat down, had a nice prepared meal. And after that, you know, we said goodbye. And then I called him the next day. I said, "You know, we accept it. And we accept the opportunity," because they were going to groom me and teach me. That was the whole thing, right? So I remember then they were really excited. They go, "We want to make a big announcement. We want it to be live on Raw. You know, so Asia sees it and all that." They had me doing dubbing in Punjabi and Hindi. So I spoke that language, and it was a message to the board of directors at Star Sports, basically saying, "I've signed, I'm from India, I'm really excited," to kind of, you know, validate the deal is done. So then they can go and renegotiate terms of their renewal. So we did all that. It was very positive. And then I was just sitting at home. Like, I wasn't getting called in. And I was only coming to TV. And then, then there's the rumbling start with the boys. Hey, because later I learned, right? Like, you have to earn your spot to be on TV. You got to be on the road. You got to pay your dues. You got to work the grind. So then when you get a shot on TV, not only the boys, but the fans, they go, okay, you know what? He's paid his dues. He's earned it. He's not just given it. But I was never booked on any house shows. Never. I think out of my until I got hurt after 5 years, it was shown in the court papers and all that. The total house shows that I was ever booked for out of one calendar year was maybe 20. But that's where you practice your craft.
Yeah.
Right. So it was almost like I'm being set up. I'm not saying Vince McMahon. He's been very honorable, very straightforward. I consider him to this day, he like it or don't like it or whatever people. I consider it a blessing. I learned a lot with the WWE from theatrics, from entertainment, giving the great opportunities. So I'm very grateful from there. I have no ill will towards anyone because that only kills yourself. No one else feels it. So I'm in a really, really wonderful place in my life. I'm very happy. But that's evidence, right? Like, I was never booked.
Yeah.
I was always come to TV to and it was shown out later that I would fall flat on my face. He's not getting a chance to be booked. There was a lot of indie bookings coming from me. They would never let me go to indies. This came out after in court papers. I didn't know what was happening. I was so green. And, but I remember maybe a month after I was called in, and he's a great guy too, Tom Pritchard. And so he wanted to go through some training with me. So it was Jim Ross that set that up. And obviously just to show what he can do. And obviously a lot of my weaknesses were exposed. Like, I had never worked for like maybe a year. I didn't go back to Japan, and now I'm not being booked. I'm not being trained. So a lot of weaknesses. And I remember then, Tom going, are you here for, a certain period of time just so WWE or something can get some? I didn't understand at that time. I said, no, brother, they signed me to a contract. He goes, oh, okay. He goes, because I was just wondering if you were brought here, short term or something. And I remember then receiving a call after the tryout. I'm at the hotel. They used to put everyone up in Stamford, I think the Holiday Inn. And I got a call. That was the very first time I spoke with Jim Ross, some 2-3 months after. He goes, hey, I just talked to Tom. He gave me fabulous news about your training. He says that you're awesome and rave reviews. So that's great. That's great. But that's contrary to what reality was. I wasn't ready. I wasn't up. And so they could have let me go because I never even signed the contract yet. So there was lots of goodwill, lots of period of time where they could have checked me out, and they did check me out. But as the story goes, that's how it evolved. That's how it started.
Wow, that is incredibly interesting. That, to me, that is just like all of a sudden you're thrusted into this thing, and all those side stories that you threw in there. Wow. I wanted to ask you about when you were brought to Kuwait. I'm sure you've answered this question many times before. From the 10th to the 13th of April, 1997, you win the Kuwaiti Cup, defeating Al Snow, Billy Gunn, Mankind, and Owen Hart on the way to winning it. How was that experience there? And you talking about feeling like you were a greenhorn, you're in there with these 4 experienced guys over the ensuing days that you were there in Kuwait. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the heat was just building already. I didn't know, right? After court documents and that, it came out exposed that, there was lots of heat towards my dad because a lot of these guys in office now were working under him or working, not his peers. So when dad was a star, I didn't realize any of that at the time, but there was lots of jealousy. So it was almost like trying to take it out on me. So now Kuwaiti Cup happens. I believe it was in March or April. I had never worked a house show. So now I'm going on to almost a year and a half of not doing anything. So it wasn't really something to endear me to the boys, right? And when you say, you won it and you were like, these guys did their best to make me look good. Like, I am so grateful to Al Snow. He is, you know, how much patience they had. And, you know, I understand they were saying, you know, Vince McMahon signed him. So, you know, there was lots of leeway given to me, but, you know, he had so much patience for me and he tried his best, but I was green at that time. And the late great Owen Hart, you know, he could wrestle with the broom and make him look good. So he did his best with me as well. I only have great memories of those guys. Did I deserve to win it? No, of course not. But it was to build that market, right?
Yeah.
The way Middle East, India, Asia. So they said, give this, you know, the token brown guy from this region, you know, to make the people feel good. That was the only reason. But I had never earned that opportunity.
I understand. It's almost like the Saudi boy that they've got on the roster now. He won a big Royal Rumble that they did in Saudi Arabia a few years ago. So, yeah, they're still doing the same kind of thing today, I suppose. Yeah. So I'd mentioned Owen Hart, and every time that I mention Owen on the show to somebody, I like to ask them if they have any fun stories of any interactions or funny ribs maybe that you'd witnessed or pulled on you maybe.
You know, I'll give you something different that I remember of him. I just remember getting good counsel from him, good advice. At the time, I had a lot of respect. I still have a lot of respect. And we were friends with Martha Hart. She had visited the house when she came to Toronto as well. He was a really gentleman. He was a gentleman. He was a family man. And I remember a couple of times he gave me advice. One was a serious advice. I remember we're flying back. He always used to fly through Toronto to go to Calgary, get the connection. So I remember we're flying back and, you know, it was getting on me, right? The politics and they play a lot of mind games, a lot of mental abuse. Sadly enough, you see a lot of people taking their life, you know, and it's to escape that depression. So I wasn't in depression or anything at the time, but it was weighing on me, you know. There's peaks and valleys. So I was in one of those valleys. Okay. Where you would try to hide, and you get with the guys also that want to, you know, that are being rubbed the wrong way, and you would make a click. So he looked at me and he goes, "Why so glum?" I said this and this, and he goes, "I'll give you one piece of advice. Never take the boys or this work home with you. Leave it on the road. When you go home, be with your wife and be with your kids. Also remember how many other jobs out there would be paying you the salary that you're getting now. So always, I guess, you know, look at the glass half full instead of half empty." Yeah. So I remember that piece of advice. We were flying together, which I still hold very true today, and I give to others. The other one was more practical, a little bit funny. I remember we're going to the Middle East and, you know, not being savvy on packing and carry-ons and all that. So I had 2 bags and clothes. And I remember, I don't know where it was, and he always had a carry-on bag. He never had checked-in luggage. It was always carry-on. And he would say, "Listen, I only need the one tracksuit." He would wear the one tracksuit on the whole tour in Kuwait. And he goes, "I just need a couple underwears and shirts. I wash them up and I have my wrestling gear." He goes, "Because the last thing you ever want to do is check in your gear. Always, Tiger, have it as a carry-on, because God forbid, you know, you lose a luggage or it gets delayed. What are you going to do?" So I laughed, I remember, because I always used to check in. I always wanted to be hands-free, walk into the plane. So since that time, I remember I used to put in my gear in my carry-on. So those are 2 great pieces of advice I remember he gave me.
Oh, man, I always love stories of Owen, even if it's not like about ribs or anything like that. I just know that, you know, he was so smart about the way that he traveled, you know. He barely ever paid for a hotel room because he was always staying with fans.
I remember we drove him. We did a tour. I think it was in New York State, and we finished at Syracuse. We did the whole thing. Madison Square Garden, then there was another city, and then Rochester. We ended up in Syracuse or Rochester. And my 2 brothers were with me we just drove, because that's not far away from Toronto. It's about 3-4 hour drive. So I remember Davy Boy and Owen, we offered them a ride back, like if they wanted to come back, right? So we drove them, we came all the way, and I remember they wanted to stop halfway, and they went into a convenience store, and they all came with baby food. I said, what the hell is, they said, this is so enriched with protein that this is what we eat on the road. So I was like blown away. So they're eating jars and jars of baby food, and they're telling me which one, like Gerber or something, which one's a good flavor, which one's not a good flavor. So that was a funny thing. And we ended up getting into Toronto. We dropped them off at the airport, and so it's just, never looking for any expectation of a return. That's just, doing goodwill gesture. That's just who we were, and not looking for money. But yeah, they were very smart, but not like, malicious. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't devious. It was just good fun. And you had to get to know them after a while, not to take it so serious. But they were good people, good people.
Well, that's great to hear. And actually, I'm getting the chance to talk to Georgia Smith on Tuesday, the British Bulldog's daughter, to talk about her father's life. And there's an exclusive out there for all the fans of the WZWA Network right now. This Tuesday, I'll be talking to Georgia. Tiger, right now, I'm telling you right now, I'm getting bitten by mosquitoes so bad that I need to do a bit of this.
Okay.
My goodness. It's summertime in Australia, so.
Oh, wow.
That should sort me out.
Okay, no problem.
If you're wondering why I was scratching myself the whole time, then now you know.
No problem. I don't make any judgments. No judgments.
So April 21st, 1997, you make your Raw debut against Salvatore Sincere. You're not under the gimmick that we famously know you as. And for most of the match, they're cutting backstage to Owen and Brett backstage. Brett's busted his knee and all that stuff. Seems like a weird way to debut somebody to be more of an afterthought to Brett's knee injury. What did you think of all of a sudden being brought to TV like this?
Well, I didn't think I was prepared. Once again, it goes back, and it's not a conspiracy theory. It was proven. And Vince McMahon had no clue of this, right? He's so busy. He's running this multi-billion-dollar organization. So he depends on people now to carry the ball. But the people that were kind of managing my time, as you know, I was never booked on a house show, and they were just trying to bring me and, kind of like flop. So the match was horrible from my perspective. Sal Sincere did the best that he possibly could. He's a great worker, and, hats off to him. But I was never prepared. There was, I should never have been put, in my opinion, on the TV, right? Remember, I wasn't brought in for a wrestler. I was brought in more to sign a TV contract.
Yeah.
So, and, if anyone tells you anything otherwise, that's their opinion, but it's just an opinion. I know what the fact is. I know the real story.
Yeah, I watched the match earlier tonight, and I concur. It was a little bit awkward, but that's what happens when they don't put somebody on house shows and help them ply their craft and get what they need, in order to be ready for television. So I did also.
I'd put it like this. I'm a great believer in spirituality. I'm a great believer in karma. And the best way how I judge people when I do business is not by what package they put on in the front. Anyone can lease or rent a car. Anyone can rent an office building. Anyone can buy a nice suit. How I judge people is by their health and by their family. That is the true judgment of an individual. You can't hide that, right? So if you're obese, when you don't need to be obese, like if it's medical, clinical, that's one thing. And if you're, telling lies, like this eventually comes out, right? And it gets presented through your health and through your home life. So that's just a note for self. but that's how I gauge people when I do business and all of that. And if I find like, you know, they're having health issues or whatever, this is karma. Like I don't owe anything to anybody but to myself. When I do a good deed to somebody, I'm not necessarily doing it for themselves. I'm doing it for myself, right? So you're very mindful not only of your actions that way, but you're mindful of the thoughts that you create as well. And so I'll just put it as that, you know. So whenever anyone's going to talk or whatever, just see what their health is like and what their home life is like.
Yeah, no, I get you. And I'm a big believer in karma as well. If anyone ever does wrong by me and then something bad happens to them, I call it karma. That's a lame joke, but it's a lame joke. But I also saw in an interview that you did that you were talking about this fantastic idea that you'd come up with. Your mum was on your case about getting yourself back on television. It had been a little while. And, you know, good on her for getting on your butt about it. And you thought about it, and you'd been seeing a bit of Jerry Springer, and you had come up with this idea about doing like a Ted DiBiase type thing, but making it more of a way more intense of a situation on television, and a shoot, getting actual people to actually do these things on television. You pitch the idea, they like the idea, they give you a script. You don't want to, you can't memorize the whole thing. Vince lets you do what you got to do. So all of this, you film vignettes and stuff. You're working with Vince Russo a little bit with this stuff as well. You know, tell me a little bit about that. I've already kind of told some of the story, but you know, you've come up your own idea here, and I think it's brilliant.
Well, thank you so very much. First of all, it wasn't my mom that was trying to get me on TV. My mom was saying, you have to earn the money.
Right,
so,
okay.
Because I was on a guaranteed contract, checks are now coming weekly to the house, substantial amount of money. And I'm a kid in a candy store, right? And my mom goes, this is unearned money. And it's setting you up for failure.
Mom's always right.
100%. Doesn't matter you're 45 or you're 4, moms are always right. So I've always heeded her advice. And I said, I don't understand what you're saying. They got what they wanted. They got the TV deal. She goes, no, but it's setting you up. It's bad habits. It's setting you up for bad habits. You have to go and earn the money. And when you earn $1, you'll see what it fills you up with. This now is not earned. Yeah. So for that reason, I said, you know, and I don't want to mention any names because it's not, you know, I don't want to give any pump for anyone, but the person that was supposed to be booking me, and it was a very high up on the corporate ladder that's in the organization. He wasn't booking me. So I said, he's not booking me on house shows. So she goes, you got to figure out a way, but you have to go and start working. So at that time, they had like, you know, the wrestling side, which was the house shows managed by a certain individual. And the other side, which was TV, which was Vince Russo. So I had never been exposed to Vince Russo at the time. So one thing I was really good. I was very meticulous on my notes. I was very meticulous, and that kind of saved me when we filed the lawsuit later. And it was, you know, it's not hearsay. It's not his word against word. I had notes on everything. So even people were caught blatantly lying, I had notes to counter it, right? And that was because of just the business I was involved with, my parents' business earlier on in my life. So I was just about notes. And at that time, there was no emails. So it was fax. There was lots of faxes I had. So I came up with this idea. You're right. I used to watch, you know, you had so much idle time. And at that time, the Funking Dojo was happening. So we were always in Stanford training. And then in the headquarters at the cafeteria, the TV would be on, and they always had it tuned to Jerry Springer. So after a while, you know, I'm not into that kind of program, but, you know, after a while, you keep watching it. And I did some research. And when they did it from a budget perspective, he was on a shoestring of a budget compared to what Oprah Winfrey was spending. And he was blowing her away on the television ratings at that time. I'm talking late 90s. So I really started looking at it. And what I found so profound, the show wasn't about Jerry Springer. Jerry Springer was there to just set it up with his audience members.
Yeah.
So I did not even think of, the great $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase at that time. Like, I wasn't even thinking of that. I was just so focused on, I really love this, right? I really love this whole idea, because I've always liked working behind the scenes and, creative and all of this. So I go, how can I make myself like a Jerry Springer in wrestling? And at that time, there wasn't any sort of implementation. I don't even think reality television was introduced in WWE at the time. So everything was scripted. There was no reality as we know reality television today. So if I'm not mistaken, the How Low Will American Go was either the first implementation of reality television in the WWE or one of the first. So anyways, neither here or there. So I came up with the idea. I figured out, okay, how can we, be a villain to Americans? So that's why I figured, let's focus on how low will an American go, while still being true and, to Canadians and being a hero to South Asians. So I put the idea together and I figured out a valet would be, at that time, Simpsons had Apu. I believe there was Apu. And so I thought, why not do Abu, right? Stereotypical. It's nothing to do with South Asian. It's more Middle Eastern, but hey, who knows over here, right? And so I pitched this whole idea and I sent it to Vince Russo. And it was mere hours, just a few hours in that same day, Vince called me, Russo. And he goes, I'm sitting here with Vince McMahon at his place in Florida, and he just is in stitches with this whole idea. So I think this was Thursday or something. And he goes, he wants you on Raw live on Monday. And I believe I'm not mistaken, you can correct me because you got all the facts. I believe it was in Anaheim at the pond. I think I was wearing my white suit, if I'm not mistaken. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's it. And he goes, but what we need is you're like the royalty, right? You don't look stereotypical like an Indian or South Asian to us Americans, right? So we need a really stereotypical looking, like people over here, they would think they're really dark and small. I know it's stereotypical. It's also on the verge of racist, but that's what he wanted, right? Like, and he's got to be the guy that takes all the heat. And I said, I don't really have a big circle of stuff like that. He goes, we're going to get the tickets and we got to get you there. So I was trying to go through my Rolodex. There's no one in the industry, no one in the business. I don't have a very big circle. But I thought about my cousin, ironically enough. And it's not that he looks anything like that. He's a great looking guy and everything. But he was studying at the time law, and he was at Harvard. So I called him up, and WWE was really popular at the time. And I said, brother, this is the situation and all this. What do you think? He goes, and he was on his summer break. He goes, because this was in the summer. And he goes, I'm there, man. I love it. I go, they're going to pay you. They will pay you a salary. They're going to pay your expenses. Like they'll pay his hotel, they'll pay his airfare and everything. So he was tickled pink. And and he lived near me, right? So it was like the best companion. We grew up with each other. So we flew on out. I think it was Anaheim, if I'm not mistaken. And like, you're right. They gave this unbelievable, 4 or 5 page script. At that point, there was no agent anointed to me at that time. There was just, and I was like, and they go, this is what we wrote up and you got to be ready to go. And I'm not sure if it was, I really don't remember what the first one was, but you're right. It was a shoot. So meaning there was no plant in the audience. You just go out and you choose a live member. And I was so petrified that what if no one, because I would say, let me see a show of hands, who wants $400 or $500 cash to come in here and be my example of how low will American go. So I was so petrified that nobody would pick up their hand and it would be like crickets. it was this, but I'm building up to that. So this is the back in the backstage, and I'm sweating. I don't remember. So now I'm getting my suit on, and my cousin, he's there. We had bought some stuff in Little India in Toronto, so stereo, with the shoe with the curly toes and Indian garb and a little turban for him, and I went out without the turban. I went out, just royal. And I was getting that gorilla position. So Vince McMahon came out from his seat and he goes, so you ready? I said, Vince, I can't remember this. He goes, let me see your script. And he took my script and he ripped it. And he goes, you just got to remember the start and the finish. Okay. And he goes, you got that? I said, I remember that. He said, make up the stuff in between. So that was it. I swear to God. We went out. Repackaged, right? Tiger Ali Singh, they repackaged, and we went in the ring, and it got to the point, let me see a show of hands, and I'd be, if I'm not mistaken, it was like every person in the stadium had a show of hands. Like you've seen the videos, the whole thing was like, it was like a party. Remember, it was the first segment of reality television, so that was new. It was revolutionary, and the skit went famously very well. And I came back to the gorilla, and it was like everyone was like really focused, like nothing had happened. And I think Vince then came up to me and he goes, way too long. He goes, how much millions do you want me to lose on you going so long? So I thought I did really horrible. And I went in the back, and normally where the boys corral, there's screens, monitors, there's nobody there. So I thought, this is horrible. So I got this and that. So the next day I'm in, I don't know what town we're at. And I believe it's, he's a French gentleman. I don't know if it's, he was part of the Quebecers. He had an eye patch.
Carl Ouellet.
Carl Ouellet. Great man. What a gentleman. And I'm sitting there all alone. And he came to me, Carl Ouellet, yes. He goes, Tiger, how are you? How are you? And I said, good. He goes, you did really good. And I said, you sure? Like nobody, he goes, no, brother. Nobody wants to mark out in front of you. He goes, I was in Gorilla. Vince McMahon fell off his seat laughing. Everyone was in stitches. He goes, all the boys were at the back in the monitors because nothing's happened like this, right? And this thing is a tremendous success, man. Like I'm telling you, if you don't already know. And I said, holy shit, like I got worked, but I was so green. So then I remember I walked into the cafeteria. Vince McMahon's at the front there with Steve Austin, Undertaker, and the rest are there. And then Vince yells at me, hey, what are you going to do now? And I was scared, like I was going, holy shit, what did I do wrong? And he goes, are you going to give dog food to somebody or something like that? Keep it coming, big success, something like that. So then you knew it was really good. So now you're climbing up the valley, right? Like there's a valley, now you're going up the peak, right? Now you're climbing. But I was so green, I didn't know. It didn't change me. The cameraman, all of them would come. Awesome, Tiger. That's amazing. I loved it. I love this. So everybody was really into it. I don't want to say marking out for it because, it's still a work, but everyone was really excited. And I remember a year later, God bless him, I think it was Ray Traylor, big boss man. He came back. He goes, I'm a huge fan. I go, what do you mean? He goes, whenever you're on live, Monday Night Nitro, all of us are around the monitors watching you. Because he goes, we're all trying to watch each other. But he goes, yours, like everyone is watching your Hello Little American Go. And I'm like, oh my God, like, are you kidding me? And I remember, kudos to Vince Russo. He saw something and then it was starting to build my confidence. And then I think he was working something, maybe an angle for an IC title run or something. It was starting to build. And next thing you know, he went down south, and then all of a sudden, I had not gotten over at that time working and all that. It was the gimmick was over. So then I kind of fell into the hands of the guys that weren't booking me on the house shows anymore, and they just wanted to try to finish it. And what a lot of people maybe are not aware, so there's stables, right? So every agent, they'll bring in somebody, and then they try to take care of that guy and push it, because as that guy gets elevated, then the agent stature gets elevated as well.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people don't realize is there was no agent or middleman to bring me in. It was Vince McMahon himself, right? He came to the house. He signed me. So after he got what was required, there was no one to kind of take me under the wing and to build me. Like, I had no advisors, I had nothing. Jim Cornette, I think he's a genius. He was a great mind, and he was helping me on the How Low Will American Go segments. I don't know, I can't speak for him, but I had a great time working with him. I learned a lot from him. I really don't have any ill will to say about anybody, there's experiences that everyone goes through their life, there's positives and negatives, but you learn and you grow from that, that's how I look at it. You try to, you try to build from it and grow, and that's how it was. So it was wonderful experience with that How Low Will American Go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say this, I'm a big fan of Vince Russo, and I know that over the years he's mentioned you several times and just sang your praises, saying how much he wishes that he could have done more for you, but obviously he had left. And I know, like, people that Russo was high on after he left, like a D'Lo Brown, all of a sudden the pushes that he had, or people in the same position as him that Vince was quite high on, their pushes ended up being significantly smaller once he had gone. But I do remember Vince saying on one of his shows, I would really like to talk to Tiger Ali Singh again. And that's something that I remember anyway. Because
wow, it's wonderful to hear. He really gave me an opportunity, which I'm very grateful for. And if there's anyone that kind of, and I know he was so busy, but as an agent role where I didn't really have anyone after Vince signed me, he was the one that kind of, was helping me. He was instrumental because he was pushing that How Low Will American Go, and it used to get so exciting. Then he was coming up with ideas as well. He goes, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. So, and Ed Ferraro, he was there as well. Had a great time with him as well. I only have positive things to think about him. It's just sad, like the way you're saying that. One thing I didn't realize is that, and I didn't understand, and I still don't understand to this day, because that's not the environment I create in our business, right? Like, we have several staff and employees and C-level people. Over there, it seemed like everyone was kind of paranoid about their position, and everyone had contracts and all of that. And I just figured, like, why wouldn't you try to work with each other and try to elevate the company, right? But a lot of people said loyalty, but I don't think there was any sense of real loyalty, I remember that's not from everybody, but that was the kind of impression I got from quite a few people. The other person which I have huge respect for was Mark Calloway, the Undertaker. I remember, asking his advice and wanting to sit. I pitched the How Low Will American Go idea to him. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think? And he goes, I think it's amazing. He goes, no wiser words were spoken, but I didn't really understand it. He goes, you got to just be sure that you're prepared to carry it, right? Like, once this thing goes, and I didn't understand it at the time. But I give him huge respects because he respected my dad so much. I remember at Owen Hart's funeral, we would show up at the hotel or something the day before, and my dad, he wouldn't stay with, he would be on his own. He has people all over, so he would drive to meet me at the hotel. And when my dad would get out of the car, and I think Undertaker, Mark Calloway was showing up at the same time, I remember Mark walking across the parking lot and paid respect to my dad. And for me, if anyone knows me, you pay respect to my dad, you have my loyalty in my heart for life. So I just have huge respect for him. The other person that I have huge respect for is Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. He became kind of my first travel companion, you know. And I remember, because I was alone, like I had nobody, you know. And I remember he goes, "Hey, Tiger, are you traveling with anybody?" And I said, "No, I'm not." He goes, "Well, why don't you come with me? You know, come with us." And he had Brian Christopher, D'Lo, Mark Henry. He goes, "Why don't we hang out?" Like, it was just, he didn't have to do that. And he was building at the time, but I developed a lot of respect and admiration for him to try to, you know, just befriend somebody that he didn't really need to befriend, you know. So huge respect. So I'm so happy for him, for all his success. That's once again karma, right? Like, he's done so good. I remember even at restaurants and all of that, because I believe his mom was a waitress at once upon a time. So he had this, you know, this huge respect, and he would always leave a big tip for the waitress. He goes, "Tiger, you know, because she only makes so much. She makes the money on the waitress. I know how that is, you know."
Yeah.
So that's all the blessings. It's all the blessings, you know, that he's received. And so a lot of wonderful, I have a lot of wonderful memories with a lot of great people, you know. Bret Hart, Hitman Bret Hart. He's the one that referred, not necessarily myself, but my dad, when Vince McMahon was looking back in the day, when, you know, for that TV deal, he called Bret Hart, and he goes, "You know, who do you know of South Asian, whatever, we need to do this TV deal?" And he goes, "There's only one guy. It's Tiger Jeet Singh."
Oh, wow.
And he goes, "Really?" He goes, "You think he goes, no, he's like celebrity. He's like, you know, an ambassador." But his son started. His son is doing some stuff in Japan. So that's how it all, that's a really key piece. That's how it all kind of interlinked. And he was very close to Carl DeMarco. So that's when Carl reached out to my dad. So huge respect for Bret Hart as well. And I'm sure there's other people, you know, as we go along memory lane, you know, there's people along your life that made an impact, right? And but these are the ones that really stand out fresh in my mind.
Excellent, man. Yeah, that's quite a list of people. I wanted to ask you quickly about having your father and the Iron Sheik with you for a brief period of time, and wondered why that kind of went away very soon. And if you have any stories of the Sheik, because I know Iron Sheik is quite a character.
Well, Iron Sheik, huge respect for him, you know, and especially from people of South Asian descent. You know, you have a reference like he's an uncle or something like that. Never traveled with him. Never was part of the extracurricular activities. But I'm a huge respect for his wrestling prowess and everything that he achieved, even amateur and to his professional career. But I think they were just trying to find a spot for me, you know, and trying to, you know, bring Iron Sheik. And I think he was with Salt and Rikishi at one time. And then they brought him here, and they said, maybe we can get some heat, right? Because that's the best way to get heat is, you know, align with the Sheik and Tiger Jeet Singh, right?
Yeah.
And I think we had a Canadian flag and an Indian flag, and we were building up some heat. You know, it was just natural heat. And then I think the Canadian flag was dropped because I think Bret Hart and the Hart, they were doing that angle with the Canadian flag. And so, yeah, it was a great time. It was just learning experience, just trying to learn and move along. And but the house shows, not having house shows, that was kind of like the Achilles, you know. But yeah, I would never, you know, if I had a chance to go back and rewrite history, I would never do it, because where I am today, it's because of all of that happening. And I can't dream of being in a better place in my life than I am today.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that, man. So you mentioned your cousin who was on television with you, who was under the name of Abu.
Abu, yeah.
But I assume he had to get back to Harvard, and he was replaced by Pablo Marquez, who is now Babu. And they never mentioned anything about that on television, but they just added a B to the front of the name, and they're on with it. But working with Pablo and doing all the things that you did, I mean, let's just list some of the things of it. Some of the highest rated segments that ever took place on television. Someone had to kiss him after he had been eating sardines, dog food, worms. Someone had to deep throat a sausage. A lot of crazy stuff. And I will say my favorite is probably the one where the woman had to kiss Babu.
Yes.
And I loved the afterward when Undertaker and Kane came out and chokeslammed you both. I thought it was just a great comeuppance for the bad guy there. Tell me about those segments and how much fun that was in the ring and these people coming in the ring to do this stuff.
I think first and foremost, I never really appreciated the moment. When I was in the moment, I never really appreciated the moment. And I don't think I really had any knowledge of how impactful it was on so many different levels. You're making South Asians, like billions of people, watching this thing, driving up the ratings. Like they're so excited to have a hero on mainstream American television worldwide, giving it to Americans. So that's something that probably a lot of fans aren't aware of. Like the ratings went through the roof, and I'm glad you alluded to it. During those segments on Raw, and there's documentation for it, the Nielsen ratings used to come the next day, and they used to break down the Nielsen ratings per quarter. And that How Low Will American Go segment was the highest ratings out of the entire 2 hours or 1 hour of Raw at that time. Steve Austin used to come in number 2 with the championship belt. So it just showed you the pendulum where it was kind of shifting at that time. It was, the entertainment, wrestling is awesome and all that. So, I consider it a blessing, when they kind of, roped me in and tied me up not to wrestle. And then I had Vince Russo to try to, build up more of the entertainment side. And this was said on many occasions, Steve Austin would come into the dressing room and he goes, the kid beat me again. Just such an unbelievable show of respect. And that's when I just started having some sort of like, I started developing a friendship with Steve Austin, like he wasn't like a machine, you know what I mean? There was a human side to him, but because he was the man, he was so focused and he, his bandwidth was so limited, he was being pulled everywhere. You never really had a time to kind of develop that rapport. Right. So that was the kind of breaking of the ice with me and him, and we would chit chat, but he never had to do that. But that was like putting me over then, like the kid beat me again, you know what I mean? On the ratings. Yeah. Like it was crazy. And I want to share what probably people aren't aware of is that the reason why we kind of made the transition from Abu to Babu, number one, the university, but the university wasn't calling him back. He still had another month. But at that kissing scene, I remember it was Jim Cornette. And it was like, hey, we're going to put sardines and you'll do a little French kiss. And my cousin at the time, I think he was 17, 18. He had never even dated a girl. And in South Asian culture, it's not really positively looked upon, right? So just because you're in America, but still we're going home and he has a family and, maybe people, not of the South Asian background won't really appreciate it, but it's not really positively looked upon, right? So entertainment has its limits. And so he said, brother, I can't do this. Now I'm sitting there, I'm going, I understand why he can't do this, but that character is building, it's building momentum. It's like a snowball coming down the hill, but I could not push him. Like I said, and I did not want him to feel guilty. And I said, I understand. So I remember going back, there was no cell phone. I went to the payphone in the dressing room and I called my dad and I said, this is the situation and all this, Dad, I don't really know. And he goes, you don't worry. If it's meant to happen, it'll happen, right? But you did the right thing. You don't want to put him in a compromising position. That's not good. It's not good for the relation. Money is not the end all, right? So I said, okay, Dad. And then all of a sudden, Pablo Marquez was walking down the hall and he caught my eye. And I said, Dad, I got to give you a call back. He goes, who? I think I found Babu, just like that. So I hung up the phone and I said, hey, how are you? And he goes, oh, Mr. Tiger, you know, he's very respectful. Mr. Tiger, how are you? And I had done enough episodes. So, you know, it built some clout, right? Now you're coming up the mountain again, right? So people would look at you differently. I'm the same guy, but now they give you space. They give you more respect. They don't bully you. You're not pressured. So you, Mr. Tiger, how are you? How are you? I said, no, man, you don't have to do. Nice to meet you. I said, do you work here? He goes, oh, I'm with ECW. I do some shows. I'm from Puerto Rico. I said, what are you doing over here? He goes, well, they had called me for a dark match. It's canceled. I go, would you like to do something with me? Have you seen my skits? He goes, oh my God, they're amazing skits. I swear to God, it was at that night. And I said, okay. So I went and told my cousin. I said, someone's here to save you. You know, and I went to Jim Cornette and I kind of sold him on why it had to be changed. He didn't understand. He goes, what? It's just entertainment. It's not entertainment. There's a culture, right?
Yeah.
So I said, anyways, this guy is ready to do it. And now he's going to go back to school anyways. And now we can change over. He goes, okay, you know, it doesn't really matter. And let's do it. And so then we would do it. And he was a big success, very, very popular. And that's when I started, I think it was that one. You're right. That's when Undertaker, it was so much heat.
Yeah.
So much heat built up. Like, honestly, I couldn't even hear I couldn't hear. There was so much.
The crowd went crazy.
Was ecstatic. And I didn't know how to ad lib. Remember, I had not got the freedom, because if you're still building, they want you to be tight. But now when you're over, now they allow you to ad lib. Yeah. And I was just starting to get into that, but I had not gone over. Like, hey, I could have done this. Hey, I could have said, hey, show me a show of hands. Who wants to see this, you know, this whatever topless? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I would never let her go topless, but I had the people. And I remember it was The Rock. He told me in the back, he said, brother, you got to play with that, man. You have it. He was so far ahead, you know, like, I said, really? He goes, yeah, man. Like, it's all about the ratings, and you're over. You should ad lib it. Just say, you know, this skank, you know, who would want to see her, you know, the puppies or something. But it was so out of my character. Like, I was not at, you know what I mean? Like, at that point of entertaining. And I remember in the back, I went and thanked Undertaker for the choke slam. I said, I hope I did everything good. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I think he apologized. He goes, I'm sorry, brother, for taking so long. I said, why? He goes, I was trying to find a place on the mat that there was no eggs. I go, what? He goes, yeah, they were throwing eggs and stuff at you. And I said, shit, I didn't even know, because you're in the moment, right? And he goes, yeah, the whole canvas was eggs. And I was looking for a place because I didn't want to mess up your suit. God bless him. Like, I remember those kind of things, right? And it was just euphoria, man. You could do no wrong. And then I started getting comfortable. And I think there was a lady, the next one, to take her clothes off. And that's when I started, you know, I said, hey, what's your name? And she goes, and I said, it doesn't really matter, you know, get with the program and take off those clothes. And I did it once or twice. And then someone told me something, you know, I don't know if it looks good for you to do that or whatever. And I think a few months later, The Rock, he started coining it. Yeah. And the history speaks for itself. You know, he made gazillions of dollars off of it. Good for him. But that's one of those things, you know, you remember, that's the origin. I think I only found out about that later. There was some fans or something, they put something and something that came back to me, go, this is the date that Tiger said it. And this is the date that The Rock said it. Like, fans are really into it, right?
Yeah.
God bless the fans. And so yeah, those are some really cool moments. All the segments were great. A lot of support. But once again, you know, once you're climbing and you're at the peak, you could do no wrong. And then Russo left, and then it just kind of staggered. You know, I think I worked some house shows.
I was going to say, you work a lot of house shows with Billy Gunn, Goldust, and Al Snow.
Yeah.
But one thing I found interesting looking back at your history was the 30th of October, 1998, in a company called the WWA, you wrestled Kurt Angle in only his 7th match in Milford, Massachusetts. You're working with a rookie, Kurt Angle. So I wanted to know what it was like to work with him before you guys did that thing on television.
So I worked with him before his introduction?
Yes, I believe his introduction was March 7th, 1999, but you wrestled him on the 30th of October, 1998 in Milford, Massachusetts.
Oh, I see. I only have high praise for Kurt Angle. You know, he's a true gentleman. At that time, I remember we were training in the Funking Dojo. Yeah. And I remember I was walking by his hotel room at the time. And he goes, Tiger. He goes, can you come here or something? My wife's on the phone. We're a big fan. At that time, How Low Will American Go had kind of blown up. And I said, really? Okay. I said, nice to meet you. I talked to her only that. I think that's the only time I said hello. And then they try to pair us. And because you know better than I do. So the best way to try to help a new person coming in and to get fan reaction is to put them up with someone who has heat, right? So even if the baby face or the newcomer is not even known, you put them up against, just like a heat magnet. That's what they used to refer to me, like the Hebners and that. You're the heater, Tiger. Like, you're the go-to heater. That's how it was kind of being coined. Not heat like you have heat with The Office. I guess I found out a little bit later I had it with a couple of people, unbeknownst to me. Because my record with them is spotless, no drug problems, no altercations, nothing. Even though they try to bring that up in court proceedings, it was baseless. But heat with an audience is a good thing, right? Like they put me in with Steve Williams, they put me in with all these guys just to get them that reaction, which I considered an honor. I consider a big honor. So with Kurt Angle, I just remember, just being in with a machine, just unbelievable machine, unbelievable athleticism, unbelievable stamina. And that's what I can remember. He had not, at that point, for obvious reasons, developed his character and that entertainment, right? So you're in there with a machine that's just, if you're in there for 10 minutes, he's running for 10 minutes, no breaks, no pauses, no working the crowd. And, but I only have high praise for Kurt Angle. Up until then, it built for his introduction, and we blew the roof off of the place.
Absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to say was that it's such a shame that, because Tiger Ali Singh, this hated, such a dislikable character, and Kurt Angle, this American hero, that confrontation, it's such a shame that at that point in time, his introduction to being on the roster wasn't going to lead to you and him having a pay-per-view match after a few weeks of television of you two going back and forth and things like that, or something like that happening. It's just such a shame, because when I watched that segment, and I remember watching it as it first happened, I'm Australian. I don't know who Kurt Angle is. I didn't know that he was an Olympic gold medalist, but yes, I was told within a few minutes that that's who he was. And I just felt magic when I was a fan watching that for the first time. It's just a shame that it could not have led to a feud, a story that could have led to a pay-per-view match and a little payoff for you and pay-per-view.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So I wanted to talk again about Babu.
Yes.
So like you're with him for a certain period of time. And I'll be honest, like no disrespect to your cousin, he was too good looking for that role.
Yeah.
I think Pablo, he had that face that servant that he's perfect. He really looked. Oh man, it makes me laugh. But he really did a good job, and I just don't understand why he disappeared from the act at some point. He got released.
So I can answer that. So they were signing him to a contract. The guy was going to make some good coin. He already started spending some good money too. It was a dream job for him, right? He was a guy, I guess, like the Virgil to $1 Million Man, right? He would be the guy to take the bumps and to work the matches, and we worked that royalty gimmick. And it was building up for the pay-per-view in England, where I was going to go against Edge.
Yes.
And he was going to be there. And I remember sitting on the rafters, Edge and I going over the match. Actually, it's Edge telling me what the match should be. I was just listening. And he goes, if you're going to go over, then we'll do an angle where Babu comes in and distracts or something. And if I'm going to go over, we'll do like, a finish or something like that. So I'm like, okay, it doesn't really matter, right? And so we're in England now. We're in England. We're at the arena. I think it was Manchester. I'm not really sure. Or was it? Yeah, I'm not really sure. But we were there.
I'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're there, and Vince McMahon called me to his office, and he goes, "Okay, your valet guy, he's out." And I didn't really ask too much. He said something at the airport, and once again, I don't know the details, but he couldn't get a flight out. He was detained or something at the airport. It's not like he went to jail or anything. Yeah. But there was something, maybe something outstanding or whatever. Like I said, I never asked. And he goes, I can't have this. Like, Vince, he had a lot of pressure, right? Like it was pay-per-view. It's a lot of stuff. And the last thing you find out, you have this big pay-per-view match and now this one guy is not part of it. So he goes, you're not having Babu anymore, right?
Oh, like, wow.
You wear the turban. I never wore a turban before that, up until maybe my wedding, right? Where somebody else tied the turban for me. And I never grew up wearing a turban. And you have to have a certain, I don't know if the word is confidence, but a certain respect. It's not that I didn't have respect or appreciation for my religion or culture, but you have to, there's a connection. Turban for our people, our Sikh faith, it's not just like a token. Like they thought it was just part of a wardrobe, right?
Yeah.
So I was being thrust into this, and I had this kind of mental conflict.
Right.
And I said, Vince, I've never worn a turban. He goes, it doesn't really matter. And I knew he was really amped up. He goes, get a turban and get an Indian flag. And maybe we were in Birmingham. No, we were in Manchester. We were in Manchester. I'm pretty sure.
Actually, I just read it. You were in the London Arena.
There, okay. And so there, I was wrong on both. It's London Arena. And but I remember my brother's in-laws, they came in from Birmingham, big wrestling fans. So I seeked them out, and I said, I referred to him. I said, Uncle, like, they want me to wear a turban, and I don't have material. So it's like, you don't just get yards of material. The material needs to be prepared, starched. You know what I mean? Because if you just get material, it's like cardboard.
Yeah.
So, and then I need an Indian flag. So where did they go? So they went while the show is going on. Okay. So I'm not even preparing, getting changed, trying to work in my mind, the match. So they come back with this unbelievable amount of yards of turban, right? Because it's fabric, and this little token flag. They go, we couldn't find a flag store anywhere, so there's an Indian restaurant. So they borrowed this flag from an Indian restaurant. So I look, it's like one of those things that in the Olympics, when the Olympians are wearing a little flag. And they gave me this unbelievable yardage. I've never tied a turban in my life. I saw my dad so many times, but I go, my dad's material it's all worn in and it's soft and you can tie it. And so I try to awkwardly tie this turban, and you could just see it. Well, I did not do the turban any justice with me trying to try it that day. I felt awkward as hell. And then the boys are coming and they're looking at me and they're trying not to say anything because they heard I have to wear a turban. And I don't know if you know this, but there's lots of racism in the US of A. And when you don't have a clique or an ethnic majority, right? So the Hispanics, they had a good number of Hispanics in the backstage. The African Americans had a good number, the Caucasians, but I was the token South Asian. So I didn't have, so they could take pot shots at me or whatever. And so I would have a thick skin, but the turban, it hit a chord, right? It hit a really sensitive chord. So it was a blur. That night was a blur. I remember Edge wasn't happy because I think he heard from Jerry Briscoe that I was going to go over. So I'm dealing with that. I remember Jerry Briscoe, then Adam, I think it was Adam or Edge, he says, but it doesn't really matter. They said they're not going to show this outside of Europe, you know? So I was like, you know, I thought it's a work, you know, we've got to help each other, right? So that's one thing that stuck out. And then I remember, you know, getting to the stage, the gorilla position, still not feeling comfortable. You know, he worked all his spots, whatever he wanted to do. You know, I'm bumping, and then I would try to get some heat. So I remember in the match, we went out and they wanted me to read something about, you know, the separatists and, you know, Indians taking over or Pakistani prime minister or something. It was all a blur. I remember in the match, you know, I'm taking bump, and then I think they called it to go home, right? Because everything runs short and all this kind of stuff. I never
it
got
only went
anything
about 3 minutes, I think. It only went about
so I didn't get anything, but he got all his stuff in, and at the end, then you know, they raised my hand. They said, make it really noticeable. You're putting your feet on the rope, and then after that, you know, I think he called it or something. I'm going to take a bump out, right? So I took a bump out. It was done, but that was a lot. That was a lot to carry, right? So unless you're of that origin and the reverence you have of the religion and the turban and the cultural significance, you'll never really understand but what I was dealing with at that time, right? So it was way more than trying to figure out what I'm going to do in a match and all of that. So it is what it is. And that was then, you know, the incarnation. Then I started wearing the turban. But it was a blessing. It was a huge blessing because even though it was thrust upon me, I now wear it with great pride and reverence. I try to promote education. You know, there's a reason for me wearing this today. It's because I just came from a school. We're doing our annual charity event, Miracle on Main, every year that we do. And, you know, I promote inclusion this way, right? I wear the red turban, wear the Santa coat, East meets West. That's why we're the best. You know, the differences make us stronger, not weaker. Let's have more tolerance instead of ignorance. So I'm invited to speak at, you know, in front of thousands of kids on an annual basis. But this is the time of year where they call this Santa Singh, you know, the tiger suit. So that's basically, so there was a purpose for that. There was a purpose for my injuries. It was, you know, I was on a certain course, but I needed to be on this course that I'm on.
Yeah. And look, I want to say, like, after you mentioned this story about what happened to you at Capital Carnage in the UK, that it really pisses me off that, you know, you're doing a good job. You're getting these ratings. You're doing a good job. You deserve to get a win at some point. And this is probably one of the biggest wins of your wrestling career on pay-per-view over Edge. And to find out that there's all this crap behind the scenes is disappointing. And it brings me to my next point, and I don't want to stick on anything too negative too long, but I listened to a quote that Bruce Pritchard had mentioned on his show, and he said that your videotape that was put in was a highlight video, and you were sold he was sold a bill of goods that wasn't correct, and that you were terrible at performing the character, and that someone else should have done the character. And I don't agree whatsoever. And he said you had no charisma. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Look at this guy. He's jacked to the gills. He's good looking. He cuts a promo like no other. He's getting these ratings. And Bruce Pritchard wants to go on his podcast and talk down about somebody that worked their ass off. You know, even if you said that you feel like you were a greenhorn at the time, I don't give a shit. You worked your ass off. You worked so hard and you did a good job. So I just wanted to, like, I know that I'm getting a little bit overly passionate, but like, it means a lot to me to have you on the show, for me to stick up for you when someone says something bad, because it's not fair. It's really not fucking fair.
Thanks, brother. I really appreciate that. I would leave it as this. That's his opinion. He's entitled to it. But the facts don't lie, right? the ratings were the ratings. It was the highest ratings in Raw when I was on. The character was over. So if you're not over, you're not going to get spots on Monday Night Raw repeatedly, week after week after week after week. And I would put more weight into what Vince Russo has to say than with Bruce Pritchard. And that's not a knock at Bruce Pritchard. I actually have respect for Bruce Pritchard. I have nothing negative to say about Bruce Pritchard or Tom Pritchard. Nothing at all. You know, I actually thought, I thought highly of Bruce Pritchard. So I have nothing negative to say about the man whatsoever.
And I like Bruce Pritchard too.
We welcome him into our home, right? So there was nothing fake or phony about that. There was nothing fake or phony that they initiated the contact. We did not solicit it. And we were very upfront about it being a highlight tape because we don't have footage.
Absolutely.
And the only thing I can say is that, when you go and buy a car, don't you take it out for a test drive before you buy it?
Exactly.
So we had not executed the agreement, not followed through on the agreement like months later. I was brought in to try out with Tom Pritchard. I was given rave reviews by Jim Ross, which I thought was not right. I knew I wasn't at that caliber. We promoted it for signing the TV deal. So, maybe he had buyer's remorse, but I was not brought in to perform as a wrestler, like from day one, like the caliber of a lot of other people, right? I was there to sign a TV deal for them, which we did very well. And then they go, okay, then I was never given any house shows. And, even I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was told to me because I have a lot of respect for Carl DeMarco, and he became a good friend here, a good ally. And I think it was months into the relationship. And he said, I was at Stanford, I was with Vince. And he goes, Tiger, you're on that outside of Vince's office. They have, I don't know if you're aware of it. I don't know if it's still there, but on the top floor, when you're walking to his corridor, they have this mural of wrestling pictures, like, the Hulk Hogan's and all of that. That's like the wall, right? So he goes, you made that? And I go, what? He goes, yeah, I think it's someone, the Giant or some choke slamming you. But he goes, you made it. And he goes, I asked Vince about Tiger. And he goes, yeah, where is Tiger? Like, he had no clue what was happening with me, where I was, and all of this kind of stuff. So once again, not wishing ill will on anyone. I just go by karma, right?
Absolutely.
How you treat others, how you act towards others, it's not to them. You're going to get it back tenfold, right? So all you have to do is, just see the people's health and see the people's family life, right? I've never changed my number. I've never changed my email. I've never changed my home address. I have such an unbelievable respect and love and affinity for, children and the community. We're very community orientated. So I'm happy. I'm very, very content.
Well, that's nice, man. And I know that you're taking the high road and it doesn't bother you, but at least allow me to be the one that's angry for you over some comments that he made. And I'm cool with that. So look, I haven't got too many questions left, and I know I've taken up a lot of your time, sir, but
no problem.
So there is a time where you go down to IWA and then you come back to be the manager for Lowdown. Whose idea was this to have you be a part of Lowdown and have D'Lo and Mosh or Chaz be with you? And how did you feel about that?
So IWA, first and foremost, I want to say I had an unbelievable, wonderful experience. I only have the highest praises to talk about the late, great Victor Quiones, Miguel Perez, Savio Vega, all the young guys there. I really learned how to work and entertain. And I don't know if you get a chance to see it. All you have to do is see some of the IWA footage, I think, that they put online, in that you'll see the body was all cut up, all chiseled, like I was fast. And I say that with the greatest humility. So if you get a chance to see it, check it out, and you won't recognize, like, so So I never had a chance to show that. But there's a reason for it, right? There's a reason for everything, because if they had seen it, they would never have let me go, right?
Right.
But I got injured, and I look at it as divine intervention to put me on the path that I'm on right now. As for D'Lo and Chaz, I don't have any disparaging things to say about them. At least to my face, we got along famously when we were in IWA. Very cordial, very respectful. We worked with each other. We traveled with each other. The only person that can make teams and all this and ideas, that's creative. So what was told to me was that, Chaz is no longer part of Headbangers, and D'Lo is not longer doing whatever he's doing. And they were kind of in a creative limbo, so to speak, right? There wasn't really anything happening for them. They had tagged them up, but it wasn't really going anywhere. This is what was told to me. There wasn't any color, right?
Okay.
And so they go, Tiger, we want to put you with them. So then there'll be color and they'll get some heat, right? So I said, okay, like that's not a problem. So I think we showed up, and then all of a sudden they said they want them to wear turbans. Creative said it. Now, at that time I had built an affinity. Remember, there's a lot of respect in culture. They obviously, and it's no slight on them, but that's not their culture. That's not their ethnicity. They don't know what about it. So they felt awkward as hell, right? A lot like how I did. And I am from that culture when it was thrown on me back in London at the pay-per-view. So they go, yeah, they want them. So it seemed like really comical, I don't know what it was, it was, they put them in these outfits initially that was more like Pirates of the Caribbean or Aladdin. They're unbelievable great workers. And, but they weren't comfortable. And then they didn't want them removing the turbans. And I remember I was talking with Stephanie or something. I said, this is like a lot of reverence and respect. Like, it doesn't really look good. You want me, and I think at that time it was Blackman where they wanted him to tear off my turban in a match.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, I watched a match earlier with him taking off the turban and wearing it, and I was like, and he threw it on you afterward. I was like, that's
yeah. So that would never have happened today, right? Because of now there's a voice and there's an understanding. But like I said, there was a lot of ignorance, a lot of bigotry, a lot of racism. I remember telling her I'm very uncomfortable. I remember Jerry Briscoe saying, are you uncomfortable? I said, I'm uncomfortable. But they said, no. I think she said something like, it's like, what was it? Like Indiana Jones, right? It's just an acting. So totally missed the whole point. Yeah. Well, that blew up in their face, right? Because then you had a South Asian uproar from India, from here and all of that. Big fires now coming up. And then all of a sudden they wanted me to go out on a peace mission, appease all this, talk to unions, talk to this. So I'm in California, then talking to, union reps for like 5,000 taxi drivers in San Francisco. And, and all the while, D'Lo and Chaz, they're not happy with the gimmick, and we're trying our best to make it happen because that's how we're getting TV time. They were fighting the Dudleys. They were fighting, you know what I mean? So it's, for them, it was like a do or die. That was the way they were getting elevated, but they hated the gimmick. I absolutely was comfortable in my gimmick, but I did not like, the roles that they were put into. Once again, nothing against the gentlemen. They're great guys. But that whole thing, it looked like almost like it was kind of like, like a rib on them. It seems like, it almost feels like that, right? But all of a sudden we started getting traction, started getting heat, right? Then I started working the mic a little bit more. Then they would listen. I said, why don't we respectfully remove the turbans in a tray with incense? I think that was Hunter's idea. I think he was saying put some incense and roses on a flight when I was flying with him. And he had suggested that. And so anyways, that's how it was, but I know they were never really happy with it. And then we ended up back in Puerto Rico. I think I got hurt. I had a concussion or something like that. So I know there was some ill will from them, towards me that, I sabotaged or ruined their careers. But if they were so well over and all of that, you don't need me. Like, you guys can continue. It has nothing to do with me, right? Managers come and go. Now you guys are established, run with it. But the office, I think, told them that no Tiger, you go to Puerto Rico. So we ended up there. Yeah. We started working really good matches. I remember they were sending agents over there. I remember Dutch Mantel. I grew an affinity to Dutch Mantel. He became a manager there. The gimmick was really over. It was, the heel gimmick was really strong. And I remember, he would tell me, like, Percy, Paul Bear and all them, they would come and check. And they saw him in matches and they said, this kid can work. This kid can really work. And Dutch goes, of course he can, So Dutch would tell me these things. But I had only great memories of IWA. I've never, even Billy Gunn, he was, a great athlete. I thought it was an honor to wrestle with him. I know he didn't really appreciate it. Was at his dying days of rockabilly, and then he transcended and did phenomenal things. But it was great working with him. I had a great time working with everybody. Dustin Reynolds, the Gold Dust, I had a lot of fun working with him. He was just a hoot of laughs. He would make me laugh all the time in the ring. And but it just seemed like there was this when people didn't know me, there was this false pretense of who I was, right? Like, there was heat amongst the boys. There was like, he's really arrogant. He's really full of himself. But then they would tell me later, Dustin was one of them, or Balls Mahoney in Puerto Rico. They go, Tiger, you're not what I thought you were. Like the boys had built you up to be like this, but you're a really cool guy. I would love to work with you, And the way you see me now is the way I was with everybody. I never took myself seriously. I never took the job seriously. I took it as a work. It pays the bills, right? But it never consumed who I was. It never took precedence over my family and our charity work and our life, because I know it's, there is a certain time, and after that shelf life, then you got to come back to reality. So I didn't want to do anything that disrespected the culture, because to them it's a character. And I remember telling this to Vince McMahon. I said, Singh is our Sikh name by birth. So for you, it's possibly a character, but I can't do anything to defame or bring dishonor, because when I go back, I don't want my dad holding his head in shame. So I got to be really careful with what we do with the character. And then I look at it as intervention. I had 2 or 3 concussions in a certain period of months, and that kind of, put me on 5 or 6 years to rehabilitate from post-concussion symptoms.
Right. Oh my gosh. I know that from my research, Lowdown was taken off television just before the invasion angle with the whole WCW, WWF debacle, which obviously didn't work out very well for the company, which might be karma. But I want to ask you, what made you want to get back into wrestling in 2008 after a 7-year absence from the ring?
So there's a growing, and this is, I think we're talking about India or the Tiger Fest incarnation.
I can find out. I know Tiger Fest was in the from 2011 to 2014.
Yes.
Let me just have a look here and see. Sorry.
That's okay. I think you're talking about India, and there was a very large drug problem growing amongst the youth. So the government over there, they appealed to my father, if we can hold wrestling shows for you, and if you and your son can come, it would be great, motivation for the youth over here. And so it was only for that sole purpose. It was more than, a payday, because with the grace of God, the family is quite diversified that we don't depend on the wrestling income. So it was more for a higher calling, if we can bring awareness, and that kind of morphed in our charity work. And then all of a sudden we were doing annual charity events, Tiger Fest, wholesome wrestling, promoting, the hospitals and health and awareness. And I think, you'll have testimonials by all of the wrestlers that were on the card in India or here. I don't think there's one of them that would say anything negative. I think they were all treated with honor and respect. there's one thing I learned in the WWE, and this is not a slight, you know, you grow. When you grow, you learn, you have life experiences. But one thing I learned was how not to mistreat people. You know, so I wanted to treat like the indie wrestlers, I wanted to treat the up and comers just like they were the main event people. So if you talk to anyone that was on the card, from Sanjay Dutt to Steve Corino, two guys that I have utmost esteem for, we would book all the wrestlers at the Hilton Garden, Hilton hotels. Their costs would be covered. We would cover all their airfare. There was no logistics. We would have them bust into the venue, which tens of thousands of people were there. That's an actual fact. You can check on the internet. It was promoted by the city, okay? They would shut down roads. It was so many people. They would shut down major arteries, bringing in people. And after it, we would have a gala. So it was, you know, we would request the wrestlers and talent to wear suit and ties, and a big banquet facility, like 5-course meal with wine and drinks. Just, it was something I remember growing up, and it was something I was drawn to because that's how it was in New Japan Pro Wrestling. When my dad would tell me of his memories in the 70s and early 80s, like, treat these people as elite athletes, treat them with dignity and respect and honor, and they will feel it themselves, right? And so that's one thing I wanted to try to elevate, you know, and give them an opportunity. And, you know, a lot of them would be so emotional, and they would come and hug me. And these are guys that were, you know, stay at the fifth wheel, or, you know, a dive, or, you know, sleep in the back of their car. And now they're at the Hilton, right? And they're being lavished at a banquet, and they're being revered at a big event. Probably, you know, for majority of them, the largest crowd that they would ever wrestle in front of. So that filled me with a lot of, just, you know, a lot of gratitude, you know, a lot of gratitude that, you know, at the end of the day, we're all human beings. I have nothing disparaging to say about anybody, because they're acting based on their life experiences, right? Like, if someone is going to give me a difference of opinion, it's not that I'm right or they're wrong, or they're right or I'm wrong. We're both right. Based on our life experiences, you have now developed, you know, a certain attitude or a certain outlook or perspective on life. So how could I judge you for being wrong if it's from your experiences? So you're right too, and I'm right based on my life experiences, right? So the best thing to do is not enter into an argument or debate. At the end of the day, I have to look at myself in the mirror. I have a very clean conscience, and that's the reason I believe I'm blessed to have the life that I have today. I work with fabulous people. I'm part of an unbelievable charity group with unbelievable volunteers. I'm blessed to have the family and my parents and my brothers. You know, we do this. I don't know if you're going to get into it. If you are, I'm going to let you lead into it. But this Miracle on Main Street, you know.
Please tell us more about it.
So Miracle on Main Street, it's going on our 12th year, and we're in the pandemic. So, you know, everything is canceled. So the event, with the grace of God, has built into something spectacular. So it's all privately funded. It's all us, our family, our foundation, which is a registered Canadian charity. So what we do is, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've donated $200,000 to local elementary schools. And it's towards initiatives such as mental health, well-being, breakfast programs, where the school board education funding falls short. So different curriculum programs where they can help use a lending hand. So we fill that void. There's no hidden agenda. I'm not running for politics. There's no, like, we're selling a business, you know, like I'm a car dealer, and now, you know, I'm promoting my dealership. So there's no promotion of any kind. It's absolutely 100% zero administrative fees. So no one makes a penny from this. It's all on a volunteer basis. So every penny from every dollar raised goes back to the community. This year now, during the pandemic, you know, because we have a very large event in the middle of December on Main Street. They shut down Main Street in this municipality, and we bring in and we erect a 60-foot high Ferris wheel. We have roller coasters. We have horse-drawn carriages, all the big McDonald's and Starbucks They give all the free food, free drinks. We have this huge live stage that's set up. So all the schools, children perform on the stage, and it's called Miracle on Main Street. So it's a free event. Thousands of children are bussed in from their schools, and the entry fee is a new unwrapped toy. So they give that off to our partners, which are the police or the EMS or the fire, and they put it in the big trucks, and then they're allowed to just enter this wonderland of just peace and love, and it's building community awareness for them. So all the donations, then we go to sick children's hospitals. We visit them in the clinic and the critical care wards, mental wards. We give the toys, we talk with them, we sit with them. Then we support the women's shelters, we support Salvation Army. So last year's event alone, in 3 hours, we raised $800,000 in donations and sponsorship. Over the last 10 or 11 years, we raised over $10 million in donations and sponsorships. So every year is building and building. So this year, everything is shut down. There's no Santa Claus parade. There's nothing. So I think out of the entire, months of the pandemic, everyone, it's about, adjusting, right? It's an adjustment on business, adjustment on life. But I think I really got hit hard, which was last month, because the reality of the situation was that we wouldn't be able to do a charity event. I wouldn't be able to visit the children. We wouldn't be able to donate to schools. We wouldn't be able to go to the hospital. So that really, really impacted me to the core. And I remember I was sitting with my mother and she said, "What's going on?" She goes, "I know you like to do things big and elaborate, but let's suppose now if you do it online or come up with a new way of not doing a live event, but still spreading awareness, and maybe you raise 10% of the proceeds that you would have raised. That's still 10% of the proceeds can help so much of the market, families in need and children." And so we did this event because of my mom, her encouragement, and we went online this year. So anyone in the world can make an online donation at miracleonmain.ca. And because there's no live event, we're still visiting the schools with the social distancing. I meet the principals outside and we give them the check for the schools. So I've already visited a total of maybe 20 different schools. And then they play our video virtually. They have virtual classrooms that they can play it, and the kids are learning online. So they all see the awareness. So it's tens of thousands of parents are aware of it. And the police are our partners. And so they're working really, really hard. And so this year I wanted to expand the reach. So in addition to funding the schools, one of the hardest hit industries are restaurants, privately owned restaurants. So now we are donating $30,000 to support restaurants in the way of we're purchasing gift cards from them, $1,500 or $2,000 worth of gift cards from each restaurant. And then we redistribute that to the families in need. So then they'll have a meal or a couple of meals and be able to treat themselves with some dignity, get dressed up, and go into a restaurant for maybe some dining, with their children. And so that's been really well received as well. So this is something just passion. So, God is great. He's blessed me to be able to dedicate the last 2 months of every year now for the last 12 years. November and December my time is 100% dedicated to Miracle on Main Street, promoting inclusion, right? I wear the red turban, the red Santa coat. I promote Merry Christmas very loud and clear. And someone looking like me, it's not a threat. It's not coming as a sign of disrespect or alienating anybody, because, the way I look, all of a sudden it's taken as, neutral. That if Tiger can say it, we can all say it. And so we have so many Muslims that come to the event, so many Jewish people, Catholics, Hindus, Sikhs, everybody comes and everybody says Merry Christmas. So that's my fulfillment. My destiny is the charity. My destiny is the foundation. My destiny is bringing happiness to the kids. And in essence, what's that's done, it's kind of, with the blessings of God, it's blessed my dream of an 18-year-old kid of continuing my father's legacy for generations, because wrestling is a job. You have a certain shelf life. acting is a job, you know, astronaut is a job. You're accumulating for yourself, right? But I went through that, you know, and accumulating for yourself, there's a temporary satisfaction. I've had a Rolls Royce, you have all the watches, you live the lavish life, but then you get bored of it. So what's there to replace it, right? What's there to do it? And what I found is that the ultimate sense of satisfaction and peace is giving happiness to others, right? So instead of making yourself smile in the mirror wearing a nice watch, which is only temporary, but giving that gesture to some stranger, I believe in all my being that I am blessed today because of the blessings and the well wishes of these thousands of strangers, children that I meet in the hospital, their parents, their grandparents, you know, giving them some solitude, giving them some happiness. I believe I am who I am today because of them and their well wishes. And so in full circle, it was a blessing, you know, for me to have had that wrestling time during my early 30s. It was a blessing then for me to go through my recovery period in my early mid 30s because I was regulated to stay at home, which I built an unbelievable relationship with my 3 children. You know, you hear a lot of parents in the summer, you know, extracurriculars, they coach their kids' team or they take them. But did you ever hear of a parent that not only in the summertime, but when school is on, he's actually in the school coaching the children as well. So I was taking them to morning practice. I was coaching their morning practice. I would take them to the games after. And I remember a couple of kids, they mentioned to my sons, they said, my parents are wondering, what does your dad do for a living? That he's here every day with us in school. But that was a blessing. Like I got a chance to, and I have an unbelievable relation with my 3 children now, you know, that, you know, how sometimes you're aspiring, you're trying to build, and then you miss the whole boat of the real thing is to develop, you're trying to, you know, buy things for your children and give them an unbelievable great life. But at the same time, you're not doing the bonding, you're not developing your relationship. And the next thing you know, they're adults, they're in university and you have nothing in common.
Yeah.
So Christmas is an unbelievable opportunity for the 2 months. We celebrate it 2 months out of the year. We're all together. We play our board games. We play our cards. And, you know, people that have known me since a kid, they go, Tiger, you've never grown up. You're still a big kid. And I think that's the greatest compliment that anyone could ever give me, you know? So I'm really, really happy.
That's great, bro. And after you telling me about all of that and everything that you've done with your charity work, the world right now, it's sometimes it feels like an upsetting place to be in, but you're doing such a nice thing and such a great thing, and I just want to say thank you.
No, thank you. You know, this is what we're here for. We're not. Remember, I'm doing this now. I realize I didn't know it at the time, but the reason I'm blessed is from doing it from my heart with a zero expectation of a return. Like if I do a nice gesture to you, I'm not looking for anything in return from you that down the road you're going to repay me, because I'm developing my own karma, right? Yeah. So the more good I do, I know I'll reap the rewards for my good karma. If I do any ill will to you, I know tomorrow. So it's my thoughts, right? From my thought. That's why, you know, you touched upon a few things. Maybe some people said some negative and all that, but they're only hurting themselves. I have nothing negative to say about anybody. I really don't. I'm at total peace. I consider it a blessing. Every person I've interacted and I've come across, you know, one of the biggest blessings we receive, not from wrestling notoriety, not from my dad's wrestling prowess. You know, they named a new school after my dad. It's called Tiger Jeet Singh Public School. It's the first public school in the world named after a pro wrestler. It's the first public school in North America named after a man of South Asian descent. It has 1,400 children from junior kindergarten to grade 8. There's lots of accolades and championship belts, but that's a job. But this creates the legacy. The Tiger Jeet Singh Foundation is a legacy. The school, Tiger Jeet Singh Public School, is a legacy. So my childhood dream of wanting my father's name to be carried on has been fulfilled. So I'm I am at peace, brother. I'm at peace.
That's amazing. That is amazing. You did it, and that's so fucking great. I'm sorry for the swearing, but it's great. No. It's so great to see that you wanted your father's name to continue your time of professional wrestling. You wanted it to continue, but you've been able to find a way outside of the business to keep it going, and that's amazing. And I really appreciate that, man. It's a wonderful thing to hear. And look, we've gone some time now, and I have one final segment to end the show. And after I finish this segment, I'll have a few more words to say to you. But this segment is called 5 Second Frenzy, Tiger, and essentially it's about 10 quick fire questions, just to learn about other things that you like in life, different things. And if you can't answer the question in 5 seconds, it's okay, because most pro wrestlers can't answer a question in 5 seconds. So here we go. Tiger Ali Singh, 5 Second Frenzy. First question, your favorite wrestler of all time?
Tiger Jeet Singh.
Knew it. Second one, your favorite match you've ever had?
Owen Hart.
Your favorite book?
That's a great question. I got to pass on that. I got too many.
That's fine. Your favorite TV show?
For a guy that doesn't watch TV, God.
Maybe when you were a kid?
Oh, when I was a kid, my God. I used to love, now I'm dating myself. I used to love Gilligan's Island. I used to love Happy Days. Yeah, they were my favorite shows.
Excellent, excellent. Your favorite film?
Like movie?
Yeah.
Well, it's probably not what you think. It's a Bollywood movie, and it's called Sholay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your favorite musical artist?
Ooh, that's a good one, because my daughter does all my playlists, and my manager's right here. We were listening to it. So I'm into a lot of Bollywood films, right? Shah Rukh Khan is one of my favorite actors. But if I were to name some English, it'll be stuff from Def Leppard, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC. Yeah. I was actually, we were on our way to a school, and I was like dressed like this, and I just lost myself. And I told my sister, I said, you should shoot a video of me. I bet you it'll go viral.
And that's all the stuff I love. I love Def Leppard. I love AC/DC. I love all those.
Do you like Led Zeppelin?
Love Zeppelin, bro. Love
okay,
Zeppelin.
You're putting a big smile on my manager's face right here. He's a huge Led Zeppelin fan.
Oh, excellent. I got the chance to see Robert Plant perform about 2 years ago, just after my 31st birthday. So,
okay.
Yeah, he was fantastic, even at his age now. Anyway, back to 5 Second Frenzy. Your favorite food, Tiger?
Oh, my favorite food. It's Indian food again, but not your typical, not like chicken curry or rice. So now that I'm lean, I eat very clean. But if I were to be able to eat anything, we call it a pronta. So it's like a roti, like a pancake, and they fill it with potatoes, or you can fill it with lean meat. So it's you can have keema pronta, or you can have aloo pronta, they call it.
Right, you just made my mouth water.
Okay.
Your favorite place to eat on the road?
I very rarely eat out, like wrestling wise, or like today, like
anytime.
Well, I remember a good story. It was The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. He taught me he said, let me teach you how to eat clean on the road. So Waffle House, I remember he's a big fan of Waffle House. He would teach me how to eat dry, he is the master. He taught me how to eat clean. So Waffle House and Denny's, that wasn't my preference, but they knew how to eat clean and they taught me. Now, from a business perspective, I like a good steak. So I would say a good steakhouse.
Excellent. We get steak a lot on the show. Now, this is an interesting one because I'm not sure if you're a drinker, but do you have a favorite alcoholic beverage? And if not, just a favorite beverage in general?
Yeah. So I've never drank in my life.
I thought so.
I've never smoked in my life. So I would say a nice beverage. What would be my beverage of drink? Jagger, what's my beverage of drink?
Upside down latte with caramel and drizzle.
Yes. So he just reminded me. It's Starbucks. It's an upside down latte with caramel drizzle, and it's tall. I would have a small.
In the morning.
In the morning.
In the afternoon.
And the.
Mocha.
Okay. So in the afternoon, he says, I like, and it's right. He's right. A Starbucks again, a tall, which is a small, cafe mocha with no whip and less sweet, half sweet.
How specific.
Yeah, I am very, very detail oriented.
Fantastic. Tiger, the second last one for 5 Second Frenzy is a bit of a naughty one, but it could be changed from that because we've had different answers for it. But your favorite female body part?
I have two.
Okay.
Smile and eyes.
We get eyes so much. We get eyes all the time.
Yeah. Smile. A smile is my wife. When I met her, she's Sikh ethnicity like me, but born and raised in Singapore. So her eyes, I fell in love with her eyes, an unbelievable smile. And she has an accent, a little accent, which I always loved. And I was always saying, I got to marry someone that has, I was into English accents at the time, but her accent's even better than English accent.
Right. Very cool. I'll say this. I think I'm an eyes guy as well, because when I'd first met my girlfriend, we've been together nearly 9 years now.
Good.
She had a Facebook picture. After I'd met her, I'd added her on Facebook, and she had her picture was had one of those fans, like the Japanese fan.
Yes.
And all you could see above the fan were these cheeky eyes. And when I looked at those eyes in that picture, I'm like, oh my Lord. And 9 years later, there we go.
Hey, you're catching up to me. I've been married. I had my silver anniversary this year, 25 years.
Oh, congratulations, sir.
Thank you.
And look, there's one more question, and I think maybe you won't be able to answer this one either, judging from how much of a gentleman you are, but your favorite curse word?
It's not necessarily my favorite, but when I'm a little bit relaxed and the passion comes out of me. So they call it, because I don't drink, but they said Tiger goes into a drunken tiredness stage. So the F-bomb. I frequently I drop the F-bomb.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, that was the end of 5 Second Frenzy. Tiger Ali Singh, I want to thank you so much in your busy time of the year doing what you do, which is so freaking important, to spend several hours with me now to talk to me about your wrestling career and your life and everything. It means so much to me that you would do this for me. And I want to tell you a personal story of me as a fan of yours when I was young. I always looked forward to the Tiger Ali Singh segment. And I was, 12, 13 years old at the time. And I remember one time I was hanging out with my friends, about 12, 13 years old at the time. We're having a barbecue. One of the sausages that we're eating had fallen on the floor. So I said to my friend, I will give you $5 Australian if you eat that sausage. In my best terrible Tiger Ali Singh impression, and he ate the sausage. So
he ate it, and you paid him.
And I paid him, and and that means I want to say all the way in the most isolated city of Perth, Western Australia, someone at the age of 12 years old did an impression of you, and it's because they appreciated what you did on television.
Thank you so very much, and I got to leave you with this: that I'm not sure, you must be aware of my dad's wrestling history in Australia and New Zealand and Auckland. So he has a huge affinity for the Down Under. He has unbelievable memories of the late, great Mario Milano.
All right,
And
yes.
he was a wonderful, wonderful, dear friend with him. So when I told him I was coming, and he said, please give all my fans down there his deepest respect and admiration, because he has nothing but the utmost fond memories during his early years. I think it was early 70s there. He just absolutely had an unbelievable time, unbelievable experience. And so I just wanted to convey that as well.
I appreciate that. And when you speak to him next, please let him know that I said hello. And I've seen a couple of things on YouTube of his, and definitely a fan. Kind of scared of him as well.
Well, you're not the only one that's scared of him. There's quite a few of them.
Excellent. Tiger Ali Singh, once again, I want to thank you for your time, and you should be extremely proud of everything that you accomplished, all those ratings that you drew, everything that you've done for so many people. I appreciate you. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, brother. Really appreciate it. And to all your listeners, very Merry Christmas, and wishing everyone happy holidays.
Thank you, Tiger. And thank you, everyone out there, for watching the WZWA Network podcast. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia Infirri, with my new best friend in the whole wide world, Tiger Ali Singh. And we will see you next time. Thank you.
See you next time.